I want to thank you all for joining me. I am the convener. I just want to introduce myself before I officially start. My sessions operate almost like a court in that there's only one matter before us, and that is as advertised on the flyer you have got. It's very specific. When we start, I welcome everybody, and my keynote guest speaker of honor will state the case for want of better word. We'll all listen, and after he finishes, I will go on to all my other speakers. At the end of that, I will invite comment from commentators. Now, I want to emphasize I don't stray outside of the topic. What I'm trying to achieve today is to agree concrete, itemized points which can be shared with members of parliament who hopefully will be taking part in the debate on the 23rd, which is why this is taking place today, to give us 1 day to collate what comes out of this session and to be able to send them out. And those who choose to can forward to whosoever they wish. I most certainly will be sending to my side, and I'm sure my other colleagues will do the same. It's just to secure interest in the matter so that it doesn't just fall flat on its face. So I hope that is very clear. We need to be very focused, because if we are not focused, we are not going to get the key points that one can use to influence the thinking of those who will have the responsibility to debate the request by those who signed the petition. We have only got, I'm going to start now. Again, before I go any further, please, as I stated on the login details, I'll be very grateful if noise can be kept to a bare minimum so that we are not interrupted. On that note, let me go straight on. It's another day. Welcome to an episode of Agbakwunitonile Odudua. I am Erelu Tuwashe. Politically, I am known as Honorary Alderman Erelu Lola Ayorinde, Conservative UK. It's a much cherished privilege to be able to have this very important gathering. It's been convened to facilitate cohesion in terms of what we need to forward to parliamentarians and other supporters who will be keen to consider what we all know. We are gathered here today because 220,070 individuals signed a petition. They signed this petition following what one can describe as horrific police brutality. My role is not to confirm or deny that. I believe the facts are there in whichever angle one wants to look at it. So, following police brutality, which occurred during a period of ENSA protests, brutality and killings, individuals were concerned enough to make an attempt to seek assistance from the British government, and the procedure seems to have been fully met. So I want to emphasize that the fact that the British Parliament accepted the petition for debate It's not because of its merit, I dare say, it's because it meets the eligibility criteria to be focused upon. To those of you who have joined me, I did send out to you scripts from the petition, stating quite clearly that, yes, the petition accepted, but footnote there makes it very clear that the British government, via the petition, are aware that Nigerian authorities are still carrying out their investigation. During this session today, we are going to look at all aspects of what led to the EndSARS protest. We are going to look at the conduct of both the protesters and, of course, the security team vis-a-vis the police and military in the way they respond to the protesters, and of course, horrific things that took place. So, as I said, it's a session at the end of which we must come up with recommendations. We must come up with key points. Those points I will collate tomorrow. I will share with those who wish to have copies, and I hope those people will forward to their parliamentarians. It's a much cherished privilege that we have a whole host of people, in particular, in line with the customs of the entire country called Nigeria. We always welcome our elders. I'd like to welcome Papa Chief Ayo Adebanjo, who has been at the forefront of getting things right for the whole of the country for the last 70 or 72 years. Thank you, Papa, for joining us today. I want to also welcome all my political colleagues, albeit from the opposite side. Wonderful to have Councillor Lambert with me, and of course, Councillor Shade Eti. It's also a privilege to have a community leader, a very prominent community leader from Merseyside, and that is Prince Oyewole Jagbe, who is very well connected with different communities in Merseyside. Most of us today are from the UK, so a very warm welcome to us all. It's really always wonderful to have somebody knowledgeable and capable to present from a focus point of view issues as they should be viewed. And consequently, I would like to, on behalf of all of us, thank Professor Solomon Ekundayo Salako, who is a professor, Liverpool Hope University, and he is my keynote guest speaker of honor today. He's got 20 to 30 minutes to enable us to get to the correct frame of mind on the topic of UK Parliament sanctions against Nigerian government officials. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you. Erelu Tunwashi of Odiremo, Yeye Akiwogun, Honorable Alderman Lola Yorinde, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to give a short keynote speech on UK Parliament and proposed sanctions on Nigerian government officials. But I feel that the topic transcends sanctions. There are quite a lot of other issues which, if we don't consider them now and act on them now, irrespective of what the outcome of the judicial inquiry is, we will find it difficult to make a very strong case. In fact, there is a strong case with or without the tribunal. The tribunal is irrelevant in international law at all. So that is what I will discourse, and I will raise the salient points, and I will expatiate on whatever I discuss. Now, UK Parliament and proposed sanctions on Nigerian government officials. A measured response to the use of live rounds on 20th of October 2020 by members of the Nigerian army and the police against peaceful protesters, resulting in dozens killed and several protesters disappearing or being wounded, must be situated in its juridico-political context. Nigeria, Chief Awolowo lamented in his book, Path to Nigerian Freedom, London, Faber and Faber, 1947, at pages 47 to 48, is not a nation. It is a mere geographical expression. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic polity created from a conglomeration of tribes with three powerful players: the Yoruba, the Hausa Fulani, and the Igbo, not in any lexical order, that is not in any order of importance. In other words, there are three states coexisting in a state, capital S, under permanent adversity. And one in particular, the Hausa Fulani, dominates the armed forces and therefore possess a stranglehold on the state. It is true that the Independence Constitution enacted by the British in November 1958, which later on became Independence Constitution of 1960, incorporated the European Convention on Human Rights 1950, and thus created a liberal democracy in Nigeria. But the reality is different. From the 1st of October 1960, the date Nigeria attained independence from Britain to date, the Nigerian polity has been transmogrified from liberal democracy to illiberal democracy to autocracy. The mowing down of peaceful protesters is just a step on the slippery slope to Islamization of Nigeria by the Hausa Fulani, which is on the cards. I will expatiate on this Islamization. When President Buhari went to the White House, at the press conference before the outgoing president, President Donald Trump, left, he asked him, he said, and this is recorded by the CNN, "I hope you are not going to Islamize Nigeria. I hope you are not going to Islamize Nigeria." He kept quiet. That meant a lot. We will now have a Catholic president and a Catholic speaker, President-elect Joe Biden and Mrs. Nancy Pelosi. Now, we should watch that very well. Now, our constitution is a secular constitution, the one prepared by the people under the guidance of Chief Oti Williams, late Chief F.R.A. Williams, was a secular constitution. That is, religion is personal to the individual. It has nothing to do with the state. And as long as we have all this hankering about Islamization or Sharia, we have a problem ahead of us, which the present regime in America and the West will not tolerate. In fact, they'll take it down quickly. I can say that with every degree of certainty. A robust response, therefore, to the killing of the protesters must send a stern warning to the perpetrators of the October 20 killing that the international community is prepared to intervene decisively in a future problem like Islamization. And that is why we must persuade the UK Parliament to impose sanctions, and I'll discuss on sanctions. But we must go beyond that. We have powers under international law, irrespective of what they say. And I can assure you that, well, if this comes up, I can stand up and argue the case in any international forum successfully. And that is what I want to present to you today. The young people did a lot. I was watching them on the CNN, and I saw how courageous they were. And I was wondering where the elders were during that period. They allowed them to be mowed down when exactly international law is against that altogether. We will ask for a position of sanction, but I will tell you how we can move forward to prevent that happening again. The pertinent question, therefore, is how should the international community, that is the key question, not just UK, how should the international community, including the UK, US, and the allies, respond? That brings me to sanctions in general and smart sanctions in particular. I want to repeat that. Economic sanctions in general and smart sanctions in particular. Economic sanctions imposed on countries such as Ian Smith's Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, apartheid South Africa, Iran, and still going, or on Serbia during the hostilities in Yugoslavia, have little effect as supplies continued to reach these countries from friendly neighbors. Smart sanctions targeting regime leaders with minimal impact on general population are effective in sending stern warning to the leaders that further egregious violations of human rights will not be tolerated. Whilst smart sanctions are recommended, they are not enough. We must consider, one, the Security Council referrals pursuant to Article 13B of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court within the so-called trigger mechanisms of the court's jurisdiction. Two, crimes against humanity, Article 7.1 of the ICC statute. And three, action under international human rights law. Either we consider this disjunctively, that is separately, or conjunctively together. I suggest that we consider a combination. And what we need is a combination of this with sanctions, so that we put the matter formally in the international arena. Whether they hold a wishy-washy inquiry or not, it's irrelevant right now. We have a case, we can take us straight to the International Criminal Court. As a matter of fact, one of my students used to be a prosecutor. I don't want to name names, and he's working right for the United Nations now. So we have an avenue straight to the United Nations, straight to ICC. But the starting point is the sanction. It is the beginning, but it's not the end at all. Now, let us look at referral by the Security Council, that is Article 13B of the Rome Statute. The Security Council can refer a situation, it's called a situation, to the International Criminal Court, ICC. Once the Security Council has referred a situation to the court's prosecutor, it cannot influence the conduct of individual criminal prosecutions. The prosecutor is the one who will individualize the case. Article 53 of the Rome Statute provides that the prosecutor can, in accordance with the provisions thereof, opt to initiate an investigation or decide that there is no sufficient evidence to prosecute. The second condition provided under Article 13b of the Rome Statute is that when referring a situation to the court, the Security Council must be acting under Chapter 7 of the Charter of the United Nations. Two situations have been referred by the Security Council to the ICC under its Chapter 7 powers, namely the situation in Darfur, Sudan, and the situation in Libya. Following the referral in the situation in Darfur and the decision by the prosecutor to open an investigation, arrest warrants were issued for these individuals allegedly responsible for the commission of crimes, including against the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. Now, let's consider what is meant by this crimes against humanity. Article 7(1), Article 7, paragraph 1 of the ICC statute. Crimes against humanity are perpetrated by state organs, that is, individuals acting in an official capacity, such as military commanders and servicemen, that is, soldiers and policemen. And that's why I said we shouldn't be bogged down with all this. There is enough evidence. I saw the evidence gathered by Nema El-Baga of CNN. It is enough to lodge a complaint, I will get to that, to the Human Rights Council, and which will set the ball rolling irrespective of what the outcome of the tribunal in Nigeria is. Now, let us look at this crime against humanity. And I want to remind you that General Obasanjo ratified the Rome Statute, which created the International Criminal Court. Even if we didn't ratify it, even if the United States didn't ratify it, they could still take their personnel to The Hague for trial. It is clearly stated there. So we are not in a scenario where we should be waiting for somebody in Nigeria, waiting for one kangaroo tribunal to give us any reply. Let's forget about that. Article 7(1) of the ICC statute provides that crime against humanity means, I will speak slowly, acts against civilian population, which include murder. I want you to know the word murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and forcible transfer of population, imprisonment, torture, sexual violence, persecution, and the last expression, I want you to know that, enforced disappearance of persons. There were some people who were killed and just disappeared there. At least they have parents and whatnot and relatives. And if the Human Rights Council takes up the matter, they will find out the details about all this, and they'll have a good case that they can present in their report, which will be made public to the whole world. You see, the last act prohibited by Article 7, paragraph 1 of the ICC statute, enforced disappearance of persons, is defined by Section 2, paragraph 2, clause I of the ICC statute as requiring the authorization, support, or acquiescence of a state or political organization. Now, let me explain what acquiescence means. A person acquiesces in an act if he has the opportunity to correct it, and he abstains from doing so, and he allows the matter to go on. And the same scenario as Mohammed bin Salman's case and the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. It's the appearance of a person. In fact, I dealt with this in an article I published last year, which I'll mention to you so that, well, in your spare time, you can sit down and read it very well. It's entitled, article, The Individual in International Law, Object versus Subject, which is published in the International Law Research, Volume 8, Number 1, pages 132 to 143, especially pages 137 to 139, where I dealt with crimes against humanity and the Jamal Khashoggi case, without mentioning Mohammed bin Salman or even mentioning Jamal Khashoggi. I dealt with this to show that, well, if he steps out of office, then he could be picked up at any time and tried. Why I'm saying this is because of the influential case, ex-party Pinochet Ugwate, number 2, House of Lords, which means that presidential immunity does not cover murder or torture. Nobody can claim immunity from murder or torture. And that brings me to the crucial part, international human rights law. That is there all along. And I'm surprised that Nigerians, not those of us who are here, who are based in Nigeria, have decided not to avail themselves of this, even though it was there for anybody who wanted to use it. You see, one of the principal duties of the Human Rights Council are specified in paragraph 5 of the General Assembly Regulation 60/251, is to respond promptly to human rights emergencies. I want to repeat that. Now, one of the principal duties of the Human Rights Council, as specified in paragraph 5 of the General Assembly Resolution 60/251, is to respond promptly to human rights emergencies. Paragraph 6 of the General Assembly Resolution enjoins the Human Rights Council to maintain a complaints procedure based on the 503 procedure created by the UN Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, in May 1970, and executed by the Commission on Human Rights. Lodging a complaint to the Human Rights Council would lead to investigating consistent patterns or gross and reliably attested violations of all human rights and fundamental freedoms occurring in Nigeria. How do we set about this? Very simple. CNN has had evidence of what transpired in Nigeria. Here we have Amnesty International. In America, they have Human Rights Watch. If they have that report from the name Bagger, they will lodge on behalf of those people who were killed or who disappeared complaints to the Human Rights Council. And that is how the prosecution is set in motion. The Human Rights Council will appoint a person to look at it, just as they did in case of Jamal Khashoggi. And a report will be prepared. The report will be circulated worldwide. Now, if necessary, then a referral will be made under Article 13B. Then it is up to the prosecutor to decide what to do. What is my conclusion, therefore? There is an overwhelming reason to impose smart sanctions I'm picking my words very well, smart sanctions on targeted members of the Nigerian regime to send a stern warning to them that egregious violations of human rights and the perpetration of crimes against humanity, as defined above, will not be tolerated. But there is also a more overwhelming need to lodge a complaint with the Human Rights Council with the assistance of either Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch, not only to alert the United Nations that there are and has been egregious violations of human rights in Nigeria, but also prepare the grounds for humanitarian intervention and prosecutions of recalcitrant members of the regime, whether soldiers or civilians, at the International Criminal Court. I have teased out some of these issues, and I'm prepared to discuss fully with you.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Solomon Salako. If you've just joined me, we're here today to have focused discussion which must have an outcome. And the outcome must be bullet points of what many of us will be in a position to send out to members of parliament. Let me say the reason why we're here is because UK Parliament will be debating petition by 220,070 people. The government responded as I will read out. The government said, "We were concerned by violence." This is the British government in response to the in response to the petition. 220,070 people signed petition asking for sanction against Nigerian government officials. And the government responded by saying, "We were concerned by violence during recent protests and await outcome of Nigerian investigations into reports of police brutality. We do not publicly speculate on future sanctions designations." What we've just heard from keynote speaker is that the issue of British government waiting for the outcome of Nigerian government's investigation into the police brutality is unnecessary on the basis that we have relevant articles which makes it legally the case that we have before us, a case of crime against humanity. And under the relevant clause, government officials who commit crime can be brought to books. And that in itself, based on evidence by CNN and a variety of other sources, necessitates us emphasizing that awaiting the outcome of the investigation of the Nigerian authorities is totally irrelevant. So let me go straight on to my next speaker. I'm going to go straight on to Prince Oyewole Jagbe, who is a community leader in Liverpool, and in that part of United Kingdom, I believe we have evidence of what could have happened. May I welcome you to speak for 15 minutes? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Erelo, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a specific assignment for this program because at the beginning of Easter protest, a number of forums actually came up in Liverpool. Most of them requesting me to join them in whatever they are doing. So there was a particular and ESA in Liverpool, which they have a WhatsApp forum. And the Erelu gave me assignment of actually talking to the key members of this forum. What do you think has been the outcome of their forum and what have they achieved from it? That gave me a task of interviewing between 5 to 10 people within the last 24 hours about what do they think they have achieved and what do they think about the petition that has gone to the House of Parliament. And I've actually got a number of variety of opinions, which actually made it interesting more than what I was expecting. But I must say emphatically that I was pleased that all these outcomes were not actually based on ethnicity or religion opinions, which actually made me a bit happy. Rather, I've got views of things, photographs, videos coming on their program, which were not pleasant to some of the people who actually joined the program. Some are saddened by what they saw. Some actually said, no, it can't be true. That cannot be in Nigeria. That some of the pictures are fake, which actually threw a lot of things into how people feel issues. In fact, I was actually gobsmacked, if I can use that word, for people to suggest that even some of us are watching the TV live, TVC or channels, and we could see what was going on. Yet, when those pictures actually come out on WhatsApp messages, some people could not believe that that could be in Nigeria. So, on the other hand, also, there was a protest in Liverpool on NSAS. And the organizers, I spoke to them as well. What do they think they've achieved? And one of the ladies who actually organized the event actually told me, actually she calls me Daddy. He said, Daddy, we've achieved quite a lot because of the social media. And without the social media, and which actually put Liverpool City on the map as one of the cities that protested in the UK, the petition that I'm talking about probably will not have occurred. And most of them in Liverpool actually signed the petitions in order to send message to Nigerian government and our politicians. A lady who reluctantly joined the forum and later withdrew actually said that she wasn't happy because she thought there would be an objective, not only discussing the forum, but to use that objective for that forum to write a letter to the Nigerian embassy. So, but since they could not achieve that, she actually withdrew from the forum. So, in other words, most of the people who joined this forum, some individuals, they were happy that the forum was set up, but they are disappointed about the objective of the forum. Another gentleman actually said he was embarrassed about the division in the group, and that's why the question came on, that immediately it was set up, there were a lot of various opinions, issues that are being discussed, which shouldn't have actually been part of the program. And therefore, he wasn't happy, but nonetheless, he still continued to be on the program because he needs to actually send messages to people to make sure that Liverpool continues to play a very strong role in whatever happened eventually. And he actually said the judicial review system in Lagos, if it's possible, they are aiming at making sure that they can write a proposal to that judicial body to look into why they think what is gone wrong in Nigeria or the killing of the people should be looked at critically to make sure that things like that they do not happen again in future. Another gentleman have a mixed feelings because he actually was in Nigeria when the EndSARS crisis started. And of course, his name was put on the forum, and he actually said he was able to send pictures onto the forum, which some of them are being disputed by other people, that is he sure that those pictures were taken in Lagos or other parts of the country. So these are actually the issues that came up from my interview from some of these people. And last but not the least, a young man who was also part of the forum actually said he was disappointed with the group entirely because he was hoping for something else in the forum. He was hoping that the forum can develop into actually having meetings apart from the protests, which he said he couldn't attend because he wasn't sure of this place where they are meeting and was too late for him to get information, and also about the fact that he wasn't so sure whether they will not be doing something against the police of Merseyside, and that's why he couldn't attend the protest. But also being one of the youngest persons who I knew was part of that forum, I interviewed him purposely. And he actually said, yeah, he was disappointed that the forum was actually hijacked by some people with a different feel. And of course, when he said that, I need to put the same question to him. Do you think those people were acting based on ethnicity or religious view? He said no. So that made me happy again because most of the time with Nigerians, I've known the issues of ethnicity and maybe religion do not allow us to look things in perspective. So I don't know. I could have actually interviewed more people if time has permitted me. But in summary, that's what report that I've got from people in Liverpool about EndSARS program, and that's the reason why they've set the forum up, and the reasons why they've actually done the protest. And as I've said, the key leaders in the protest actually said their protest has actually achieved the objective. If not, there'll be no any judicial inquiry in Nigeria, and there'll be no petition being signed for sanctions to be taken against certain officials of Nigerian government. I rest my case.
Thank you very much indeed, Prince Ajagbe. If you've just joined me, a very warm welcome. I'm just going to read an extract to you. Well, the news says, Minister for Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, dismissed the CNN investigation as fake news and misinformation, and repeatedly denying the military used live rounds against protesters. I'll also go further by saying that it seems very clear that Nigeria also is threatening CNN with sanctions, meaning to take them off the air. So I want us to begin to put this into context, because 222,000 people, signatures, presented to UK Parliament asking UK government to impose sanctions on Nigerian government officials. And I have to emphasize, Britain at the moment is saying, we know the authorities are currently investigating. Whether that will have a significant impact when the debate takes place on the 23rd, which is just Monday, one will see. Let me go straight on to my next speaker. Let me invite former Speaker of Hackney, Councillor Shade Eti, to share her thoughts with us. Warm welcome to you. You have 10 minutes to
Thank
please
you very
share your thoughts.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erelu. Good afternoon, distinguished leaders on the platform. And I have to say a big thank you to Erelu Tuashe for this platform and for the great work she has been doing ever since she started the forum. I have learned a lot on this forum, and I've heard a lot on this forum. And I must acknowledge the previous speakers, Professor and the community leader, Mr. Oyewole Ajagbe. With regards to what happened, Erelu, if you would not mind, before we finish the program, to have a 1 minute silence for the loss of those lovely souls that were lost in Nigeria. What can we say? Today we are discussing this petition put before the UK government, asking it to intervene. This idea seems to be that if we cannot get justice at home, maybe international pressure will actually urge the political leaders to be more effectuous in their position. We support the petition. We have an association of British councillors association of British councillors, and we actually sent a communique, not only to the High Commissioner, but we also sent it to the House of Rep, and also we extended it to the presidency, condemning the act of what has happened. And we got a response through the High Commissioner in London here. That is to the extent of how deep the situation, how serious the situation is. I think we have moved from SARS to end oppression, because what we are seeing is certainly undemocratic, and there are signs of an oppressive government. What then can the British government do in a Nigerian national crisis? How can the UK support Nigeria in a way that does not erode our national sovereignty or open the door to undue interference and neocolonialism on any front? Let us remember that even the SARS were actually trained by British, in terms of the defense, they were actually trained by British. The SARS that caused all the problem. There are pertinent and weighty questions that ought to be given due consideration. Nigerian citizens have signed this petition because in the absence of national justice, international pressure can achieve what the Nigerian government seems unable and unwilling to give to its citizens. I think, in my own opinion, the UK should make every effort to be transparent in every way. And I support what Professor said. When we are looking at, the whatever that has been set up, do I have any trust in it? I do not have any trust in it. I do not believe in the outcome of any investigation or outcome of that. We've had so many recommendations in the past. What has been the outcome? This is not something that started ago, that started just now. If we all read the Amnesty report of 2007 and 17, which was titled, it says, I have signed my paper. Somebody that was just arrested signed and said, you have signed your death warrant. That is the extent to what has been happening in our country far back as 2017, and which in terms of quietness has been the norm of the day, killings has been the norm of the day, kidnapping has been the norm of the day. I sincerely support what Professor has said. I think smart sanction, but when we are talking about smart sanctions, I am looking at those political leaders to target their assets and freeze it as against individuals and citizens involved in oppressing the Nigerian citizens. So in terms of, I would not support widespread economic sanction, because that will bring a lot of poverty into the system. When we look at the rate of poverty in Nigeria at the moment, and if they have to go through widespread economic action, it will affect a lot of people. But I think the main thing should be on those political leaders who have actually caused this. And I will want to say something. I agree with what Professor has said. But I think our leaders have a lot to do with regards to what is happening. What needs to change in Nigeria? Why does it have to get to this extent before the youth actually took the banso? I mean, if anyone had told me at the beginning of this year that we will achieve this feat in Nigeria, I would find it difficult to believe. But however, in a month, the youth have shown the passion for the future. Their bravery, their unity, I sincerely respect. And that is the type of leaders we want. I think it is time for the leaders to listen to, and everyone in our power to listen to the youth so that those that died will not have died in vain. When we are talking about leaders in Nigeria, political leaders have a role to play. What has been happening in the last, look, we are 60 years. A 60-year-old man has a granddaughter or a grandchild. And this is Nigeria at 60. It seems to be the same norm of whatever we have been experiencing before. What has happened to our leaders? Our leaders have a critical role to play in the current situation. Personally, I want the government or probably the House of Rep to look at the immediate cause. They are setting up this, what is it called? They have not looked into the immediate cause. When are they going to look into the immediate cause that caused this crisis? How are they going to tackle this? What are the effective recommendations that will come up? We need genuine and sincere leaders. And I think any public leader that cannot serve, that cannot be a public servant, is not fit to be a political leader in Nigeria as we speak. I think there are lots that needs to be done. And definitely it has to be through collective effort. I mean, we must not continue to fold our arms to feel it is the norm of the day. No, the army cannot just pull up and begin to fire. They have killed innocent souls. This is real crime against humanity, and sincerely, punishment must be made from the top to everyone that has participated in this. I think this should be a really point of call and a turnaround, and we must all come together to condemn this and to move things forward for Nigeria. Thank you very much, Erelu.
Thank you for your contribution. If you've just joined me, we are here for one main reason. Would we be able, at the end of this gathering, come up with substantive evidence why UK Parliament on Monday should not have the decision dependent on the fact that Nigeria is yet to complete investigations into the violent killings of a number of innocent people. Let me make reference to a report drawn to my attention by someone else. Amnesty International Nigeria apparently conducted an on-the-ground investigation and found that at least 12 people were killed by the Nigerian army and police in 2 locations in Lagos. Amnesty called the shootings extrajudicial executions. I don't want us to lose that, but before we go any further, I'm going to have to stop for just 30 seconds or more to observe period of silence as suggested by Councillor Shadi Eti. So let's just take a short break in memory of those who were killed. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. We mustn't also forget devastated families all over the country who lost loved ones during the tragic occurrence, the aftermath of the NSAS protests. So let me go straight on to my next speaker. And I'm going to invite, let me go straight on to Councillor Sonny Lambert, who is also a politician in the United Kingdom. He's a Labour councillor who served for many years. Let me invite him to share his thoughts for the next 10 minutes with us, with a focus on, do you think that the British government would have enough evidence to uphold the current position, not to ignore outcomes of allegedly ongoing investigations into the brutality and killings of the NSAS protesters? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Elu, and greetings, to all the others, colleagues on the program, and most especially, Professor Solomon Salako, who did the opening speech. Yes, I think it's a very sad story. It's a very sad situation. First time I think as somebody of Nigerian origin. After all, we've been here for some time now. We can say we are British, but my home is Nigerian, and I felt extremely sad watching that incident on our telly, and I was watching it on our Rai station, and I saw what was going on live. And also since then, I also organized, a discussion which invited people from America and Europe to participate, which was entitled "Which Way Nigeria?" Simply because of the shock of what happened. But if I just go back to what some of the notes I took from the presentation from Professor Solako, and then I'll link it to uh, the petition responses. Yes, we have about 220 or so 1,000 responses, which means the British government have to debate it at the parliament level, and that gives them authority. But whether that's forcing Nigeria to do something is a different case. Because Nigeria, as Professor Salako probably you can also testify to this, even though we quoted under human rights, United Nations provision for human rights, also you also have a provision that allows states to investigate any incident in their own domain only when they fail to do it properly. Perhaps maybe that's where international community can then step in. That's number one. Then number two, also, even if international community is going to step in, as we see in so many cases which you mentioned, if you go back to Khashoggi case which you mentioned, you also find that despite their atrocious, crime committed, yet the Saudi government, have they been made to account for it? I doubt it. Will they ever be able to account for it? I have my own reservations on that, because where the energy comes in, especially we also as well, if you go back to some of the stories we had in the past, is also the African countries, most especially, who complain that it's always the African countries that they use the United Nations weapons. When I say weapon, I mean the very loose terms, in the instrument of power, legal power they have to intimidate African leaders. So therefore, even when the UN wants to get involved, or even the Westminster, our own government here, were to get involved, they'll be calling them all sorts of names. So we have to be very careful about that. We also have to, so I have reservation whether it's actually going to go to anywhere at all. And of course, taking back to what my sister, Councillor Shadieti, also mentioned before as well, when you look at, the NSAS protest, yes, it is true. Everybody have the right to protest. It's a fundamental human rights. But at the same time, you have to look at, does the state, because despite the fact I'm a politician in this country, but I also want to look at it in a very balanced way. Now, do I have a right as a citizen to protest? Yes, of course I have right. But also, where there's right, there's also responsibility. So does the government also have the right to enforce law? Yes, every government has the right. So that is why we are. So therefore, when I listen to the comments made by the minister in Nigeria about they are carrying out their own investigation about what happened and what they are going to do, if I then tally it to those instruments I mentioned it under the United Nations, so we have to also be very careful about. I mean, even when I say careful, I mean whether sanction is the appropriate measure at this point, because until when the state actually fail to actually do something about the atrocity committed on their soil, whether is at the instigation of the powers in government or the officials or individual. Only when is that clear that you can then see where the blame lies. Of course, if I want to base it on what I watched on the telly on that night, I saw, army, the Nigerian army, whether it's official one or those who are camouflage, I don't know. But I saw it with my own eyes on the telly, inflicting these atrocities against their own citizens. And that's what actually prompted me to organize, a consultative event as well. Why should this be happening in our own country? Is it acceptable in 21st century Nigeria? And therefore, the government should be made accountable. But also, we also have to be careful. Even the government, the British government, then find, the Nigerian government culpable. Okay, it's the tendency for even some of us will be saying, oh yeah, they are now using their weapon as our colonial masters. I think we got our independence 60 years ago. And that is why I believe the responsibility is now upon the Nigerian government to actually do the right thing and make sure the incident is it's completely free and fair in terms of investigation, and come up with a recommendation, one, how to make sure it doesn't happen again in future, and two, those who are responsible for committing atrocities, what kind of punishment and sanctions they as individuals is going to face. I believe only when that fails, a state fails to respond in a very responsible way, that's where international community needs to come in. That's my own understanding. I may be wrong. And even if I go back to Professor Solomon Kasalako as well, I think a few weeks ago, I was privileged to actually attend one of the lectures presented by one of your colleagues as an alumni of University of College, the School of Government, by one of your colleagues who said that yes, because of the same issue of the allegation against the international committee, they are always very reluctant to go in first. Only when the state fail to act, that's when the international committee they can then. And of course, the state has a responsibility. Of course, also as our individuals as well. When the state fail, I think that's where even we as individuals, whether live within the UK and in Nigeria itself, or we in the household, can actually take personal, private action against the state. I believe that's also provided for under United Nations Charter as well. Sorry, I'm not, a professor. I'm not a professor of law. It's just my own general understanding how the system works. I believe you can also enlighten us more later on. So I think if I'm asked some questions later on, I'm happy to add some more points. I don't want to waste too much time on this, but at the same time, if I'm asked more, I'll be able to expatiate more on my own personal opinion later on. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to to share my own personal views on this, and I'll be happy to answer questions or even add more later on. So thank you, Rilu.